somebody gets on and says, I'm a bigamist and I think that's great, and then somebody else says, oh, you're just really a jerk and a bastard, and things like that. And there's a real sort of, it's a kind of a simulated, but nonetheless, public discourse around questions of family relations and sexual relations that don't get played out anywhere else. And I think that as a feminist, to me, those kinds of issues are real important politically. And so, a lot of times it's dumb, but I am not sorry it's on. Oh, it's very popular. God, this woman has made herself into a... Yes, and Oprah Winfrey, I think, is the most popular, and I think rightly so. Partly because actually, I don't watch it all that much, but actually, Oprah Winfrey has not only she's very conscious of her own class and race position, and she's non-judgmental. Whereas if you watch Dan Rather or someone or Ted Koppel, who represents what's supposed to be the higher ground, you'll get an authoritative view, which is really the media's view. Ted Koppel has paid a huge amount of money because he's very good at manipulating people in a certain way. Oprah Winfrey, on the other hand, and again, this is daytime TV, which the networks care somewhat less about because fewer men watch it. They seem to disregard a lot more goes on in women's programming than goes on primetime, actually. So they let it go.
Does that explain why there isn't a show like that, like say 10 or 30?
Yes. I think so.
Something like Johnny Carson.
That's right. Yeah, I don't think Oprah Winfrey wouldn't run at night. Oprah Winfrey is for the girls, and a lot of men watch it, but they don't necessarily own up to it. It's just like soap operas. Lots of men watch soap operas, but they don't admit it. It's like this sort of closet thing. But a lot of I have more sympathy for that kind of stuff, even though I agree with you that a lot of times it's kind of, drivel. I mean, but I like it better than I like the stuff where I have these men with these perfect accents telling me what I'm supposed to think about Nicaragua, which, I don't like that. So I don't think it's an unhealthy thing. I think Morton Downey was an unhealthy thing. Andrew Dice Clay is an unhealthy thing. Mm-hmm.
Back to the contradiction thing, talk about unhealthy. I read Postman, and I think that he would argue that it
Who?
was unhealthy because people wouldn't recognize that there even was a contradiction because they're so emotionally involved in the program and not cognitively
Yes.
involved.
Okay.
And that also, since they're not cognitively involved in issues, that even if they did see it and felt something or were moved by it, they wouldn't act or, because they'd be watching more television or something.
Who did you read?
Neil Postman.
Oh, yeah. I don't agree with Neil Postman about this kind of thing. Actually, I have a different perspective. I think that he is one of many people who actually are much more disrespectful of people's ability to discern what's going on.
So you think he doesn't give watchers enough credit?
Oh, absolutely. I think that, all these people that argue, the way he argues, that it's this, it's sort of like, it's a Luddism, sort of like, get rid of television and everything would be okay. That is, to me, a silly point of view. To me, the point of view is, A, teach people to read television, and B, get them involved in trying to change television. You're not going to take away television. Television is a miraculous, like an extreme world. Television is a wonderful technology, and it can be used for wonderful things. And his position is a McLuhanite position, which is that the media itself inherently forces you to be you know, sort of like numbed out and stuff like that. I don't agree with that, and I do think that if people are not aware of the contradictions of the commercial, I actually think that there is something jarring about watching, especially, it's unfortunate that the sound was so bad and the picture was so bad, but if you watch this and get to the point where this woman actually tries to kill herself because of the stupid law, and then you see these commercials, people do laugh at commercials. They do. Don't you think? I mean, people understand that commercials are
And I
silly.
think it creates a dissonance not just on a cognitive level, but on initially an emotional level, where you suddenly shift from the pill taking and the dad.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
I think it's wonderful in that it teaches social values and morals and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you. Do I think what?
So you think it's wonderful because TV is good because it teaches social norms?
No, I didn't say TV was good. I said that TV is contradictory and it can be good, and that actually, if you want to pursue this further, which we did in a seminar that I did this afternoon, there are ways that people should think about media, in my view, as being another sphere of political work and workplace organizing that they don't. People are mystified by television and they think it's beyond their control, whereas in fact, it seems to me that as consumers and increasingly as people who work in the industry, what's the difference between working on an assembly line as an auto worker and going on strike, and or whatever, for whatever kinds of reasons, and working at a point of production kind of position in the creation of media. But we don't have that consciousness. So no, I don't think that it's good, but I do think that it can be good. I think it's sometimes good, and I think that it could be better if public groups outside and workers inside saw themselves as having power. Why shouldn't we? I mean, why shouldn't we think of ourselves as having power over the media? I mean, it makes a lot more sense than thinking we have power over the Democratic and Republican Party. We beat our head against the wall. People don't vote in this country.
Let me go back to Dickens' argument about the monopolization in terms of ownership.
Yes.
In the hierarchy of ownership running through various kinds of publications, newspapers, handbooks, and textbooks, like people's education, textbooks, TV, but into non-media
Yes.
holding companies above all of them.
That's right.
Which basically turn out to be banks and financing operations. Certainly that must be, to some extent,
Oh, yeah.
old-fashionedly troubling. I mean, that must be disturbing,
Yeah.
that kind of, and the collapse from his first volume in '83 to the third edition in '90.
Oh, yeah.
100% collapse.
Yeah, the conglomerization of the media, which actually goes back to 1948, but actually it's it's certainly it doesn't happen to be what I was dealing with tonight. But it's another aspect. But certainly that is very, very true, and that is no more true of the media than it. I mean, it's good that he's writing that stuff, and it's good that we have it to use. I use it in my classes. However, that's the nature of transnational capital at this point. Across the board, the media is just one more big business. That's one aspect of it. Still in all, because it relies on creative talent and intellectual talent to some extent, it's there's something about the players that are more. It seems to me there's more going on. Again, it's because ultimately they rely on talent, and they can't get away from that. You don't have to be talented to work on an auto assembly line. You can be on drugs basically and put your little things in your things and just go, but people basically, they do have to hire people who have some creativity and some intelligence to do this, and therefore, within the context of what you're saying, which is absolutely right, I'm just looking at it from a point of view that you're less likely to hear about, but I do think that you have to see it in the whole context, definitely, and he's definitely right that that's happening everywhere.
I think we're running close to the end. Maybe take one more question.
Question, two questions. One is, do you think, as you mentioned something like soap opera, so there obviously I felt that maybe you address this issue somewhere along the line. Do you think they're creative? Do you think they affect people throughout different class structures? And the second question is, what do you think if media started putting captions so everybody can read?
What do you mean captions?
You know, where you have to write it on the closed section. All, they have to hear it.
Oh, yeah.
They open it up so everybody can maybe associate what they see.
So learn to read, you mean?
Sort of like if they could see it and also see the words and then they can associate.
Yeah, well, actually, it's an interesting thing. Children learn to read, certainly they learn to read from Sesame Street, but also, in a strange way, children learn to read much earlier from watching commercials because these big words, so that, yeah, it could definitely, and it is being used for literacy training. And, in lots of countries, literacy programs use things like comic books because that's what you can get people to read. And so, yes, I agree with that. The question about soap operas is more complicated. I think that there's a lot about soap operas that's really dumb. I do actually think, though, that, again, for similar reasons from what I was saying about these movies and about Oprah Winfrey and things like that more than people realize, they're geared to women, and they tend to present feminist issues. It's a kind of a women's get-up there. And there's more that's interesting in the portrayal of women on daytime than on most prime time, which, women have very, very poor showings on primetime television. But daytime soap operas revolve around women. I mean, it's this fantasy, which is really a fantasy, that the world revolves around women and women's issues. If you ever watch soap operas, people never go out of their houses, I mean, there's no outdoors, It's like men come home,
Where are the feminist issues in those soap operas?
You have to watch for a while, but there are actually, I spent some time this afternoon actually. There's several examples. I mean, I have many examples of ways in which soap operas, at great length and in fairly sophisticated and subtle ways, have presented issues of date rape, lesbianism, lots of, other things, like let me try to think, sexual abuse, incest, have been treated on soap operas in a serious way, and in ways that run for very, very long periods of time. Soap operas are funny kinds of forms because they're very sophisticated compared, I think, to prime time. Compared to like something like Cheers, where you get the same people every week and they say the same thing every week. What you have on soap operas is a community that you get to know, and that people actually become very much involved in. And maybe there are 30 main characters that all interact with each other in different ways. And when these issues come up, they're worked out in ways where people actually argue about them and change their minds about them and change their characters. And I actually think that in many ways dramatically, and this is not saying anything about the dumb things about soap operas in terms of class and in terms of the fantasy of what capitalism is like and that kind of thing, they're really dumb. But in terms of interpersonal issues, and particularly issues that affect women, They often are extremely intelligent.
But dealing basically with the upper middle class and rich. Hardly ever with most of the people.
Yeah, that's right. They're class biased. They're yeah.
Racist.
Oh yeah. I mean, on a soap opera, it doesn't matter what class you know. Everybody's the same. And if you're a good person, you soon you could be anything, and you soon become a corporate executive. I mean, it's totally unreal. It's a feudal society. You know, there are these few little businessmen that live in these little towns.